TFNation! How we doing? Who sat through the whole 90 minutes? Yeah. Pretty interesting, wasn't it? Yeah. It's going to be crazy how Chris is going to be able to transition all of that into a video called The Basics. I have no idea. But we are now moving on to one of my favourite panels of the weekend. We started doing this several years ago with, well, the idea came from you guys, because we have so many people who always ask voice actors, you know, how did you get into the industry? What recommendations do you have? Things like that. And we thought it would be a really good idea to get all of our voice actors on stage to talk a little bit about the reality of voice acting. So, please give a massive round of applause to Neil Kaplan, Evan Michael Lee, and Mr. Chris Finney!
I'm just hoping at some point you'll remind me which one of the three I am. It's been a long weekend without a lot of sleep.
Yeah. I was going to say, how are you all feeling on Sunday?
Good. I mean, I feel good. I can't speak for the other two. How you feel?
Well, I mean, look, you wake up and see that in the mirror every day. Why wouldn't you feel good? Stop it.
You're right. No pushback.
But I feel good because Chris is here. So...
Yeah, I suppose...
And his emotional support.
he basically is my British punching bag, and I love him for that.
Try to switch spaces with you so you can be the sort of emotional support.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I'm just confused because the other panel had my name up there, so I felt a lot more secure, but now it's finding your voice and it's like,
who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who are you?
Well, that's good. Hopefully, together as a group, we will explore these questions.
I like it.
And come to a satisfying conclusion.
Good.
We'll run off kicking and screaming. One or two. Before we get started, just in case anybody doesn't know, obviously, Neil, Evan, Chris over the other end, who is my punching bag. I'll just give Chris a brief introduction, just in case you don't know. Usually, every year, around March time, I message this guy and I'm like, hey, I've got some plans, I've got some ideas, things like that. I need voices because Chris, you are also a professional voice actor working in the UK. So do you want to just give people just a brief overview of who you are and what you've done?
So essentially that, I've been a professional voice actor here in the UK for about 20 years now. Started off in around about 2005. So and I've worked in pretty much everything you can think of over the years. Video games, I've done a lot of animation, television commercials, audio adventures, you know, pretty much you name it. But a lot of video games, things like I did a game called Divinity: Original Sin 2. You guys know that game? Hey! I did that game. I played a guy in that game called If and Ben Mez.
Certainly, Chris has become the highlight.
Suddenly people know who I am. A lot of video games and all that stuff. So basically, been working for quite a long time doing what I do.
And just
can I throw this out there? Anybody see the special yesterday, the Transformer episode that never was? Who saw it? Yeah. That amazing American narrator was this bloke right over here, holy mackerel. Believe it or not, that's right. Give it up. He turned to me last night and said, I sound more American than you do. And I said, look, these days that's not a good thing.
And just as a tiny little tangent and a small link to Transformers, you have voiced Bumblebee.
Well, sort of. A few years ago, there was a television advert for Direct Line Insurance. Did anybody see that after the Bumblebee movie came out? They had Bumblebee in the advert. Yeah, that was me. I was Bumblebee's voice.
Yeah. So there we go.
So it's a random number of voices because it's meant to be a radio thing. So yeah, I was doing all kinds of stuff. But yeah. Kinda.
Right, so so now that the introductions are out of the way, let's get started. So ultimately, the purpose of this is to just talk about voice acting and ultimately your thought process on it. What I want to do is I want to kick it off with all of you, and we'll go down the line. What is it about voice acting that appeals to you, Neil?
As I said the other day, I don't have to worry about shaving. I don't have to worry about wearing... Basically, ladies and gentlemen, I'm wearing my work clothes right now. Yes. Just so you know. This is the suit I wear to the office, okay? Unless, of course, I'm working from home, in which case it's probably not this nice. But I think it's the variety of work that we get to do. At this point in time, video games are much like film in that any style can happen. You know, if you're a film actor, you can work on The Naked Gun in 1 week, and you can work on Pride and Prejudice the next week, and they're going to be two totally different styles of acting. And I love that in voiceover, it runs the gamut, you know? I mean, Krusty the Clown, hey! To something rather serious. You know, and just, I like to do all of that. I grew up doing impressions, and I did stage work, and everything I did on stage, always, by the time we went into production, had a different voice. I don't know that I had the same voice for any two shows. So having the opportunity to do that in voiceover is just, and of course, you know, one of the favorite moments for me was when I got introduced for a video game called StarCraft 2. And that was, it was pay-per-view all around the world, and people posted on the internet, who is that twerp? And it's like, because my character's 6'8", 380 pounds, so it's like, I've never been so flattered to be called a twerp. Thank you. You know, usually, you know, they expect a man a lot bigger and a lot blacker, quite frankly. You know, that happens a lot. And it just, I love it. I love it, and I get to work with lots of different people, and I get to be in lots of different genres, and for me, it's it. And of course, let's not forget, I don't have to memorize anything.
Evan, I see you just nodding in agreement throughout that whole thing.
No, I agree with none of that. No, like, I think, like I was mentioning before, yesterday, I kind of fell into voiceover by accident when I saw that the WWE was doing a cartoon show many years ago. And I had a theatrical on-camera manager, and I was like, can you give me an audition for this? I think it'd be good. And I ended up getting it, and so my first director ever was Seth Green from Family Guy and Robot Chicken. So I was like, oh, okay. And he was super cool and very helpful. But like, by the end of the session, I felt like a fraud, even though I've been doing stage acting for like 7 years. But like, voice acting was just like a new realm to me. But I was like, I don't like doing things full on that I don't really feel comfortable knowing what I'm doing. So I'm like, with the money I got from that show, I put it into classes. So I was just taking like voiceover classes and whatnot. And then around 2018, I was going to this video game convention. I don't know if you've heard of it, called E3. Does anyone remember E3? So I'm going to E3, and I'm watching all these trailers, and that's what really lit the fuse. I'm like looking at all these game trailers, and I've been a lifelong gamer. I'm like, why are you not in these, Evan? Like, you should be up there. That should be like your voice. I'm gonna like really lean back into voiceover. So I like started like taking classes again. I was really leaning into it. I was like, this is gonna be my year. And then 2020 happened. Yeah. But actually, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because in that moment, I built a booth in my house, I got a microphone, I got my dream agent, because it was going to be one of those things where it's like, you're either going to lean into this, Evan, or it's going to be something you just talk about in your head forever. And so I ended up in 2021 getting my first video game, which was this game called Lost Ark. And then the second one was this fighting game called Guilty Gear, which I'm sure some of you have heard of, a couple of woos. After that, it was like Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy 7, the remake, and then Street Fighter 6, and then Veil of the Witch, and then Wastelands, and then, yeah, just kind of off to the races at that point. And then, as fortune would have it, I ended up becoming a Transformer one day. So as I was saying yesterday, if you just leave a little room in your life for magic, like, I'm no more or less special than anyone else in this room. So like one day you could be sitting up here too, and I'll be out there being like, I knew them when.
Evan, do me a favor, there was something that you told me about that I think is important to mention here.
Yes.
As part of the process of getting into the film, because you were originally hired to work on scratch tracks.
Right,
so
right.
Please tell them about that.
Okay, so scratch track, that's like kind of a fancy term for just like kind of a filler in. It's kind of for animators' purposes to get like the timing of certain things so that when they bring the famous people in, you know, they're not like wasting their time because famous people are expensive. So I was doing the scratch track for like Bumblebee and Megatron and Alpha Trion and like a couple of guards and ancillary characters here and there. But they kept bringing me back and bringing me back and bringing me back, and I was thinking in my head at one point, I was like, I think they're gonna put me in this movie. But I didn't want to be presumptuous. I was like, maybe like guard number 3 in the back or whatever. And then as fortune would have it, they like called, like my agent called me, which he never calls, and said, yo, call me back when you get this message. So I was like, yo, what's up? I'm thinking I'm getting fired. Anytime someone calls, I'm getting fired. Like, what did I do now? Yeah. And he's like, so they have one more role in the movie, and they don't need scratch audio for it. They would love it if you would be their jazz. They've been sitting on this for a long time, but they now want to officially offer it to you. And I'm eating a burrito, having my lunch in the kitchen by myself, and time might as well have frozen. And I said to them, I'll be there Monday. I will be there Monday. So, yeah, like again, that was just me not even thinking about, oh, would it be nice if I was a Transformer one day. I just took a job and was fully prepared to just walk away, do the next job, and that would just be the end of it, you know? But as fortune would have it, they kept me, so there you have it.
Basically, scratch tracks are like, you know, they have photo doubles for films. You know, they don't want to, back in the day, they didn't want to put Gene Hackman, they didn't want to waste his time and pull him out of the trailer and have him stand there just to fix the lighting. So a friend of mine, Wes Johnson, who's also a voice actor, was the lighting double for that film. So he would come out and stand there for like a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, so they could adjust the lights and do all of that. Scratch tracks, because that's how I actually got into StarCraft 2, is to help with timing. They figure that the performance, while it won't be exactly the same as what's done in the final, it'll be close enough where they can at least animate some of it. They can get the body going, they can kind of get the face, and then they'll tighten that up and do the lips and all that to match after the person who's playing it steps in and records. So it's not necessarily just because they don't want to spend the money on the famous people, but that certainly is part of it. It certainly is that, but it's part of the production because they'll do the scratch tracks sometimes years in advance, you know, but it's a very important part of the process for, as Evan said, the animators and the timing and the production. And plus they can see some things in development and kind of go, you know, that's not really working, so they'll cut that scene, so they don't have to do it after they've paid Keanu Reeves to be in the studio for 2 days or whatever, so.
And to that point, and don't ask me what, because at this point I don't even remember, but that did happen on Transformers 1, where I would do a scene or whatever, and then I would leave, and then they come back and say, you know what, that scene didn't really work, so we rewrote it and we're gonna do it this way. So I would go and I was like, yeah, sure, we're gonna do it again, and you know, they would work then, but then they would also do it again for a different character. Like, yeah, but now we have to change this because now we changed that, so yeah, to Neil's point, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a back and forth between the animators and also just kind of figuring out what works.
Chris, how did you stumble into this wonderful world of voice acting? I suppose is it much different, do you think, here in the UK?
The way it happened for me was when I was a kid, I was always into, my thing was cartoons. And at some point I kind of realized that these characters I was watching, as I got a bit older, these characters I was watching on TV were actually voiced by real people. It kind of dawned on me that they were people recording it somewhere. And I actually went to drama school in London and trained for 3 years to be an actor at a place called Central School of Speech and Drama. And while I was there, I kind of realised that the idea of getting into voice acting kind of came back around to me. So I knew that I wanted to do it, and while I was training to be an actor, and I kind of thought, well, how do I do it? So I basically just did my homework to find out how do I do this, and what I realised was ideally you need an agent. So I looked into which agents were out there, how do you contact an agent, how do you do it? Well, you need a demo reel, you need to put together something to get their attention. So I did that, and I had, at the time, I had no idea how to make a demo reel, not a clue, I was completely green. So I went to a company, a recording studio in London the recording studios out there who will write and record demos for voice actors and whatnot. So I went and got one of those. And submitted it, and I got the demo made. First one I'd ever done. Was really pleased with it. Was kind of thought, this is great. This sounds really good. I'm going to send this off. So I get it. And unlike nowadays, where you send something via MP3 in an email to an agent, back then it was you get a whole bunch of compact discs. You get like 20 copies of your demo. You stick it in a stamped addressed envelope and you post it off to the agent with another envelope in there so they can send it back to you if they don't want it. And I sent like 25 copies of my demo out to all these different agents and nobody wanted it.
Wait a second, what year was this?
This was 2005.
So how did you send out 25 copies? Are you a time traveler?
Shut up!
Mind blown. You're gonna make that joke.
I can do things other people can't. So I sent all the demos out and nobody wanted it, and I got like 2 replies back from like 2 of the agents I sent them to saying why they didn't want it. So by this point I was kind of like, well, that's the end of that. No voice acting career for me. And I kind of gave up, and I was feeling really despondent and kind of, this isn't going to happen, so I did my best and whatever. And then, as luck would have it, my girlfriend at the time was looking at, and this is how far back we're going, MySpace. That's like not a thing anymore.
MySpace.
MySpace, you remember that? So she was looking at MySpace, and she happened to notice there was a thing on MySpace that a woman named Emma Harvey had put a thing on MySpace saying that she was opening a voiceover agency, and she was for a short period of time she was looking for new talent, and my girlfriend said, why don't you apply for this? And at this point I was like, nobody wants me, why no? But then I thought about it and thought, well, it's not going to hurt to send it to like one more person, so what the hell? So I emailed the MP3 over to her, and she came back to me and said, this is great, come and see me, and she signed me up, and that was 20 years ago, and that was how it came about. Yeah.
So one thing that I've never asked any of our actors on stage is, tell me a little bit about the agent process, because as you said, Chris, you can't really make much of a dent without an agent. But what are you looking for in an agent as an actor? Stunned silence.
I mean,
You want to go first?
the thing is, like,
Is this because there's cameras on and people are recording?
Or there are children in the room.
the thing with agents is, like, there are voice actors out there who don't have an agent. They represent themselves, at least in the UK, I don't know how it is in the States if you don't have an agent, but there are voice actors working who don't have an agent and have never had an agent, and they represent themselves. Okay. And that's okay, but in my mind, a really good agent kind of does 3 things. They hopefully find you work, or at least auditions, and put them in your direction. They deal with the paperwork, the sort of tricky paperwork to what you should and shouldn't get in, and also really importantly, they kind of make sure that you don't get screwed over, because they're there to make sure that you're getting paid fairly for what you're doing, because the voiceover world can be kind of murky in terms of what you should be getting paid, to what people want to pay you, and what So so for me, it's they find you the work, they handle the admin side of it, but they also make sure that you're represented fairly, which I think is pretty important.
Look, for me, I probably balance bounced around to at least a third of the agents in Los Angeles. I haven't done what a lot of actors do in America, which is they get regional agents all over the place. I just don't feel comfortable with that. So I just have one agent in LA and deal with national stuff there. But for me, somebody who can deal with my sense of humor kind of helps.
Is that why you bounced around a lot?
I'll get this Neil guy. No, not exactly. My first agent was more of a modeling agency, so it was like, I'm wasting my time here, I'm not getting auditions. Then I moved over to a voiceover agent, and we had a little bit of a falling out. I would say that agent had more of a habit of answering the phone as opposed to making calls. And so I used to say the phone only worked one way. And that agent had some very popular actors that kept the agency afloat. And at one point in time I asked, hey, I'd love to be on this show. And the response from the agent was essentially, they didn't want to risk their higher level client's relationship by trying to get me in on that show. And my feeling was, wait, if you think that I'm going to go on this show and I'm going to damage your relationship, I shouldn't be here. Yeah. So I went to the next agency, and I love that agent, but they basically called me one day and said, from now on we don't, and this agent was right near my apartment. And we got an email saying, from this point forward, we don't want you coming into the office, we want you to do your auditions at home, send one take. And I'm one of those guys that's like, wait, what do you mean one take? I get auditions for a regular guy, like, here's an example. I booked a video game called BioShock Infinite, and I go there and I'm working on it, and I come in and they say, great, what are we working on? Do you have a reference? And they said, no, we don't have a reference. The script's right there. Take a look at it. What do you think you do? And I basically said, well, something like this, I would give you at least two different versions. I'd give you a 165-pound version of the guy and a 260-pound version of the guy. You know, and from the other side of the glass, they said, great, we're going to do 165 today, we're going to bring you back next week to do a 260, which was great, you know, but when the agent said only one take, my response was, well, wait, I almost never have only one take on something, it's very rare. So how about if I send you the multiple takes, and since you know what your other clients are submitting, you pick whatever hole you have, whatever gap you have, and they said no. And I just went, you know, if you can't deal with my versatility, I can't be here. And then I moved on to the next agent. And at the next agent, you know, we ended up, I booked a couple of shows while I was there, and I was hoping, great, we'll take advantage of this. They didn't. And they ended up bringing in, a rather amazing voice actor by the name of Eric Bauza, who does everything. And he does everything brilliantly. And it just really felt like they were putting all their energy behind pushing Eric, the versatile Eric, as opposed to the versatile Neil. And I said, you know, you have a bunch of clients, I have one. I have to look out for myself. So when my contract ran out, I moved to the next one. And that next agency ended up basically crumbling while I was there and folding up shop. Like literally, I went there because the former receptionist at our agency, who I became friends with, went to another agency, became a junior agent, then moved on to another agency where she became an agent. And I thought, that's who I want to work with. I've known her for a while, and I liked the three agents that were there, and I signed the contract, and one by one, they each left. And I was like, okay, so I don't know these new agents, and they don't know me. For me, my greatest strength is also my greatest weakness. It's my versatility. If you have an actor on camera like Alan Tudyk, who could play anything, you see Alan on camera as a producer or as a casting person or as a director, and you go, oh, I love his work. Oh, I love his work. I need to work with him. Sometimes people like me who can kind of disappear behind characters, they might have heard me a bunch of times and not known it. So, you know, it's like people have told me for years, I can't be a voice actor, I'm not as versatile as you are. And I'll say, so you're not as versatile as James Earl Jones? James Earl Jones, rest his soul, bless his talent, had the vocal range of Y to Z. All right? In other words, small. But he was an actor beyond compare. And you would never ever mistake a line from Mufasa for a line from Darth Vader, and yet they're two of the most famous father figures in all of cinema. So it's about the acting. And I tell people that if you have the one voice but you can act the living crud out of it, then you got a shot. But you know, when sometimes you're versatile, they don't know how to think of you. And I've had agents tell me, I've had casting people tell me, I don't know what you do. And I say, what do you need? Because that's what I do. And so I ended up at the agency that I'm at now, and I feel like I've got great relationships with those agents, even though I now live on the other side of the country. And I really like it there. I'm hoping this is the last agent that I'm with. But, you know, there was another agency that I kept asking about because a friend of mine was an agent there. And the response was usually, we don't need you, we have Fred Tatasciore. And I was like, got it. And that's true, because here's the thing about agents, not to take up too much time, guys, but you got to be careful what agent you sign with. Sometimes people get an offer from a really big agency, and sometimes that is actually not in the actor's best interest, because there was a practice in Hollywood, and I think it still goes on, where they've got actors who make double scale, and they sign a young, talented actor who makes single scale to take them out of the running. To basically go, this is a challenge to our person who makes double. We will now make sure that they don't get those auditions. Because the agency doesn't necessarily always care about the individual actors. They just want to make their 10% and make sure they're paying their bills.
Yeah.
So, you know, and sometimes it's not even a conscious thing. Sometimes they take on a young actor, but they're still focusing on their big money people. So you can get swallowed up in that. So it's not always the best. It's like doing conventions. Sometimes when you do New York Comic Con, nobody knows you're there. But when you do TF Con, and it's nice and medium-sized and intimate, people know you're there, and you can have a better time at that convention.
Yeah.
It's the same thing at an agency. So, because look, everybody else is nice and polite and kind. Sometimes I'm the jerk who tells their version of the truth, which is not always sweet and tasty. So, that's my job.
There you go. I hope you've had better luck.
What's that?
I hope you've had better luck with some of
He's
your
actually
agents.
at this brilliant agency that I'm finally at.
Yeah, I just found that out, the other day that we're at the same agency. Like I said before, I left room for magic. Like, I was, in 2020, I was doing my research on agencies in America, and I was looking, what was it, VO Buzz Weekly? But yeah, I was looking up, there's a web series with Chuck Duran and, who was the other? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, his partner.
Yes.
I remember her, Stacy.
Stacy. Okay, so I was looking up their web series, and you know, they have voice actors on there, and then they'll have casting directors, and they'll have agents, and the agents I was really interested in. I'm like, okay, let me learn about some of these people. Let me see what they're like, because like, I'm kind of the vibes guy, man. So I see this one guy, it's the same agent we're with, and I'm like, I like him. Because he's a straight shooter, doesn't mess around, and I'm like, I like that energy. And I need someone like that who's going to be in front of me, like, you know, pitching me out there, and not, you know, softballing me, you know, like someone's going to go right down the pipeline. So I emailed him, you know, a couple times, and didn't get a response, you know, like, oh, classic, you know, thing. And it just so happened, during 2020, my last VO class that I took, my teacher has known this agent for 15 years, and we had hit it off great. So I just kind of casually at one point threw it out there of like, oh yeah, I'm really trying to go with this agent. He's like, oh, I've known him for 15. Allow me. took my demo, put it in like a email, and said, hey, I got this guy, you interested? Here's the stuff. He wrote back, I'm very interested, and signed me immediately. See? Magic.
But the fact of it is that person would not have put their reputation on the line had they not heard brilliant things from Evan, had they not heard the capacity for being in a major worldwide, hit film.
Totally.
So obviously Evan brought it, and the person who took the time. See, I love taking classes with the people who will make the difference. When you're at the beginning, take a class with an actor. Learn how to act, learn how to get better. But when you're ready, then I think you take the classes from the people that do the hiring. The casting people, the producers, the directors, the agents, because you'll learn about the business, and if you just so happen to hit the nail on the head, something may happen that can't happen if you're being taught by an actor.
And you're more likely to be remembered.
One thing that I always think is really compelling about voice acting, and to be honest, I know we've been banging around the term, and you guys are the professionals, but I find voice acting, it's totally interchangeable with acting. There is no difference to it. And I think a lot of time, especially when I hear people asking questions, they'll often say, I can do a good impression. And I'd like you to speak on the difference between being an impersonator and an actor.
Yes.
Well, first of all, you can do the world's greatest Peter Griffin, but if you think that Seth MacFarlane, the writer, director, producer, and voice of Peter Griffin is going to say, oh yeah, why don't you do it?
Yeah, I'll take 5.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Plus, a lot of the impressionists do those lines. So basically what you say is, great, read this paragraph. Say anything else. And they can't. So it's like, well, what good does that do? I mean, you can, hi Mark, Comedy Frog here, but if you can't say something else like, okay, David, what is it that you're interested in learning? If you can't do that, then you can't play the character. And we talk in shorthand. We talk about voices that we do, but we don't do voices. We play characters. Okay? And when I was doing the introductory panel for StarCraft 2, one of the stars was Tricia Helfer, who you might remember as number 6 from Battlestar Galactica and a whole lot of other films, very talented actress. And she was saying, because what's voice acting like? And all the voice actors said their thing, and then it got to her. And she said, when I'm doing Battlestar, I have the prop gun in my hand. I'm wearing the costume. I can see the other actor that I'm playing with. Yeah, maybe I see the lights, maybe I see the camera, maybe I see the boom mic and the crew, but seeing all that other stuff helps me be in character. But when I'm playing Sarah Kerrigan, I got nothing but my imagination. So at a certain point, it's almost more acting, because you have to tap into something, you have to feel something. You can't fake it with blocking or with special effects or anything like that. I've had teachers tell me the microphone's a truth teller, a lie detector. And if you don't feel it, if you don't believe it, we're going to hear it.
Yeah.
I think I've often thought about it in sort of what you're talking about, but from a slightly different angle. I think when people look at actors, not just voice actors, but when they look at actors and they see somebody do something and they go, I could do that. Now, there's a possibility that probably they could do that. Maybe they are like the next Robert De Niro in waiting, but I think sometimes a lot of people look at it and go, when they think I could do that, what they actually are saying is, I could do an impression of that. Like I could take what they've done and replicate it. But what you have to remember is that that actor has originated that role. They've got the script, they've looked at the script, they've worked out, they've done the research, they've worked out what that character needs to be, and they've created it. So when you're talking about impressions, it's exactly what Neil said. It's you can sound like a character, but that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to acting. There's a lot more to it, and I think sometimes people kind of you know, they look at what voice actors do and they focus on the voice part too much. They forget about the acting part. And when you talk about voice acting, the second part is far, far more important than the first part.
And another aspect is, you know, a session is 2 hours, sort of 2 to 4 hours. So you could be, you know, doing an anime show, you know, that's kind of cold reading, as we talked about before. You don't get the script ahead of time. And a lot of other times, there's a lot of shouting, you know what I mean? So if you go too hard with a line to begin with and you damage yourself, well, you still got another hour left or another 2 hours left. So it's kind of what we're talking about taking classes, like learning the techniques and whatnot. So when you get in these spaces, it's more than just like, oh, I could do this voice, which I'm sure you could. But as Neil said, could I give you a script of lines this character has never said, and can you say it for 4 hours? That's the difference.
Now, I used to say, anyone who's ever told a lie and gotten away with it understands the inherent truth that anyone can act. That doesn't mean anyone can be an actor, okay? As we have seen, there have been really talented people who have come from other places, football players, basketball players, boxers, models, you know, in America, even politicians sometimes. You know, and if the role fits what they do, they can play it. Doesn't mean they have the versatility to play everything else. So if you understand that, the next step is, well, I can talk. So everybody feels like I can do voiceover, I know how to talk. Then give them a couple of sentences to read out loud. No, I didn't say, no. Because trust me, that word wouldn't have fit in my sentence. I was finding another word, okay? I did not say that, so please don't think
we need that Men in Black thing to like...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you didn't see anything.
But essentially, if you give people a couple of sentences and ask them to read that out loud that they've never seen before, you know, they may stumble through that. Suddenly, you know, the person who's very well spoken can't get through 3 sentences without stumbling. It's not, what I like to say is voiceover is simple. It ain't easy.
Yeah, I say, like, similarly, I'm like, it's not hard, but it's not easy. And make no mistake, when we're, you know, submitting ourselves for work, we're by ourselves. You know what I mean? So you don't have anyone to kind of bounce your takes off of. They're like, am I doing this right, or does this fit the character? It's just you and your imagination. So that's where you kind of have to get comfortable with, you know, the acting training and whatnot and everything that Neil was saying and what Chris was also reiterating.
You have to be able to assimilate things very quickly. Like when you walk into a session for like if you're recording animation, there's a chance you may have seen the script in advance. And you can gather what the story is, because you read the story, read the parts. But when you record a video game, if you're playing a character who's in it quite a lot, it's literally like, there's zero story context. You walk in, they give you a script, and it's literally line. There's nothing in between that tells you where the character's been, what they're doing. I mean, you might get a little bit at the side saying, okay, in this bit he's doing this. But you don't really know the context. So you have to hope that you have a really good voice director in the session who's done their homework and knows what the game is about, so they can guide you as to what the context is. But even when you get that, you have to pick that up really quickly in terms of something you've never seen in your life, and I said no context, and you have to not only not screw it up in terms of the reading of the lines and get your head around it fast, but you've got to also give that performance as an actor on something that is, you know, is literally just, you know, there's no backstory to it. You have to take it in very quickly and then do your job with something that you literally haven't seen until that point.
I've said for a long time that voice acting is the grandest game of pretend that you could imagine. You know, voiceover is the closest. Voiceover is the closest thing to being 6 years old, other than being 5. Okay? In that, when you're 6 years old and you grab a red towel and a pen, your parents have to go, now remember, you can't fly. You can't fly, because you give a 6-year-old a a red towel and a safety pin, and they'll go up to the second floor and go, here goes, crypto! You know, and so
a few moments later. Boot up, yeah.
But that's what we do is, you know, we pretend that we're 6'8", 380 pounds, 20,000 years in the future, you know, or we're in my case, a toilet. Or, no, I've played a toilet before, ladies and gentlemen. But here's the thing that I like to say is everything in voiceover is told through one language, and it's the language of human emotion. Okay? That's what the audience understands. So it doesn't matter what you're playing, because you're still playing something with a soul. You're still playing something with the energy of a human being. So that's what really matters, is bringing that character to life and embodying the soul of the character. I mean, you know, sure, maybe it was elongated bowl, it would have sounded different, you know, rather than the oval bowls, and you know what I'm talking about, the longer ones, you know, which totally sound different than urinals, but we don't want to go there, okay? But you can play anything. You can play a haunted house, you can play a wall, you can play a wrench, you can play a Wookiee, you know, and you still have to have that emotion.
Yeah.
One thing, you know, we talk about, we hear an awful lot about the glamorous side of voice acting, you know, celebrating people's roles and things like that.
Glamour?
Hold on, I want to hear more about this glamorous side of
Glamour.
Tell me more, please.
Well, you know,
Champagne and caviar, they were my.
How many sessions did you wear that tux for when you recorded jazz?
Yeah. Pull up my Rolls Royce. They did have LaCroix for me and like licorice, because I said it one time and they always had it for me.
oh,
Yeah. I was like, okay, like that's pretty metal.
I will say that when you're working on something sort of regular, you're at a good studio, they do bring in the breakfast sandwiches from Porto's.
Yeah.
And they do have the salted caramels, and they do have the fully stocked fridge, and it is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Glamorous, not so much, but nice, yes.
Yeah, nice.
I was going to say, okay, so we know about the benefits of the snack bar. But I think one thing that perhaps doesn't get talked about as much, especially now, post the dark times, when it sounds like the more and more voice actors are working independently in their own homes, is looking after yourself, looking after your own mental well-being, and especially being able to handle rejection.
Chris, you wanna?
Come on, Chris, rejection.
I got stories too.
There used to be this thing called booking ratios, where people would say they book 10% of what they auditioned for. Booking ratios don't exist anymore. It's basically, if you want to talk about booking ratio, it's 2.5%, you know? It's really small. So we audition for a lot, and there are a lot of people competing for it. So it's kind of crazy for most of us. There are the few that have burst through and are thought of all the time, you know, which is something we all aspire to, you know. But certainly, like somebody asked me if they would see me in the bar tonight, and I said no. And they said, why? The show's over. Aren't you gonna have a drink? It's like, no, alcohol's bad for my throat. Talking over the noise in the bar is bad for my throat. And I have 2 sessions coming up this week, and I still have a transatlantic flight that I have to take. So I need to pamper myself. And yes, certainly, but if we were working in another outside of our house, the studio may take care of us while we're there, but outside of that, they don't necessarily care. So now it's more along the lines of we have to be technicians. Like I was saying the other day, I wish that studios would put together a checklist and send it to us before we do a session, just as an attachment to remind us, we're going to be, make sure you're hardwired, make sure that you save everything as a WAV file, make sure you have your DAW set up, whatever it is, everything that we need to know, because we're just, most of us, I'm sure not Evan, and I'm sure not Chris, but some of us are goofy, silly artist types that are like, what? What do I need to do? And it's like, you need to set your ports. What's a port? How do I get into my port? And if you don't do that, then your source connect won't work. And if your source connect won't work, then you can't do the session. You know, because it's like, we prefer to do sessions where we get on a train or drive to the studio and walk in and go, what do you want me to do? As opposed to being the engineer setting everything up for an hour beforehand. You know, that's brought in a whole new thing that old guys like me, you know, it's like, you were talking about sending your CD. I go back to this thing called reel-to-reel tape.
Reel-to-reel?
Reel-to-reel tape was back when, you know, this was when voice actors had to be trained, and they had to have, and their diction must be proper, and pronunciation mattered, and you had to be clear and concise and read thoroughly, because they didn't want to take the tape and go and find where the edit was, then take the reel off, take a razor blade to it, cut it, tape it back together. Now they just see the waveform and go, click, click, we're done, you know, and it's a totally different world, you know, so I'm, in many senses, there's a lot of me that's still analog, and I'm trying to become more and more digital every day, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, to touch on something else that you mentioned a second ago, you know, people have asked me over the years about being a voice actor and becoming a voice actor, and I think sometimes, not everybody, but some people have this idea that they'll make this decision to become a voice actor, they'll quit their job, and the next day everybody will be lining up to give them voiceover jobs. It doesn't work like that, and I think if being a voice actor is your dream, that's what you want to do, then you absolutely must try, because you've got to be in it to win it. But you'll get rejected a lot of the time, and you need a thick skin to be able to do it. It's not as simple as just deciding you're going to do it. And I mean, you know, every now and again, somebody who's really, really good at it gets in, but it's
all right.
But very often, you'll get rejected a lot of the time. You need a thick skin. You don't get, you know.
I mean, it comes in waves, right? Like, there'll be moments when, like, oh, I'm killing it. Like, you're just, like, booking left and right. And then, all of a sudden, the email just, like, kind of gets a little dry. And then all of a sudden, you're not booking as much. And then month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goes by. You're like, oh, who did I make mad? Like, why doesn't everyone hate me? Right? That's when you start spiraling and think, like, oh, everyone hates me, I'll never work again, right?
Quit reading my mind.
No. I would just at you at that point. No, I wouldn't. No, I'd never do it. Yeah, no. I mean, also to like what Neil was saying about being our own engineer and whatnot. See, like I'm bougie. Like I'll be upfront. I'm like when they're like, do you want to do it like in studio or like at home? I'm like, I'll come in. I'm not doing none of that. Oh no.
I'm happy to take the train down.
Same. Thank you. I'll come in. It's fine.
The funny thing was, after when COVID happened, I mean, I'm assuming you guys are the same, but here in the UK, when COVID happened, if you didn't get some way of recording at home, you were out of the game. You couldn't work if you couldn't record remotely.
Yeah.
And so some actors were fine because they had home studios and have had for years, but others were kind of nailing duvets to the wardrobe and hiding in there and doing the best they could. And studios were quite forgiving at that point because they knew that some people were doing the best they could, but couldn't do like a professional setup. But that was the first time I got myself a home studio because I decided to invest in it because I thought, well, it'll come in handy if this COVID thing goes on. Because I got mine in the gap between lockdowns, and then we went into another one. But I thought, well, I'll get it because then I can work from home and I can do more work and all that kind of thing. And for me, it was a trial by fire because I'm a technical gibbon. Like I had to learn very quickly how to deal with the technical side of it. I mean, I'm not a sound engineer. I think Greg Berger said it well. I'm audition proficient, but I'm not session proficient. I can do the basics and get by, but I mean, the guys in sound booths who do recording sessions, they're like Gandalf. The stuff they do is amazing, like how they can work it so fast. But so I decided to do that. But it was a learning curve to try and to make it work. But then ironically, I got the home studio and was like, brilliant, I can do everything from home from now on. And then as soon as COVID was over, they were like, right, go to London. We want you in the booth. We want you to be there, and all the rest of it. So.
Yeah, I had an audition booth basically, and ordered stuff as soon as I could. And there was a Digimon project, and I wasn't going to get my new microphone in time, so they hired another actor to play Hawkman. But then I had my stuff, and when the new movies came around, they came back and said, can you come back now? So that was great, but I still remember the same guy who didn't let me audition for Optimus Prime was the same guy who said, oh yeah, you're going to get your mic too late, we're going to get somebody else to play Hawkman. One of my favorites. Anyway, but then I got my booth, and my booth in LA is literally 4 rods, clothes, duvet, and that booth, I have been told by engineers around the world, was giving them better sound than people at professional studios. I actually did an episode of Attack on Titan while the building was getting the pool jackhammered out of the courtyard of our building. I kid you not. I had 2 sessions set up for Crunchyroll, and it was on a Monday. So I woke up to the jackhammer, got like email, I can't do this session for the first show. Don't even remember what it was, so we rebooked it, thank goodness. Second show was Attack on Titan, which we'd already been working on. Every single word I did record on Attack on Titan was all from that closet studio. So I saw that the director and the engineer were both online. I got online and called them up and said, hey, can you do me a favor and tell me, can you hear this? And they said, hear what? And I said, no, the jackhammer in the background. What jackhammer? I said, turn up your gain, I'm going to turn up my gain. And we did, and I recorded one line, and I said, how's that? And they said, let's record the episode. Because it was basically a directional mic, facing this way, the courtyard was over there, I was hearing it just through the open back of my headphones. So there is an episode of Attack on Titan with a jackhammer in the background. I was General Theo McGath of the Marleyan Army in the final season of Attack on Titan, and no, it doesn't sound like Optimus Prime at all.
Man, I love Attack on Titan. I love that show. I don't have like a lot of favorite anime shows, but like, that's one of my favorites. I didn't know you were on that show. Like, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm the guy who likes when they talk about the big 3 in anime, because they go, what do you consider the big 3? Naruto. No. It's Naruto, Bleach. And then they'll talk about One Piece or Attack on Titan, and which are the 3 of those 4? And I go, well, I've been on all 4, so it doesn't matter to me. That's where I do my Bugs Bunny impression when Bugs is in the dress. Oh, Mr. Fun.
Do you do that in the mirror at home? At night? Or yourself?
Shut up. And I think on that revelatory bombshell,
Yeah, a little lore.
we have reached the end of our time with you. Don't go. Oh, this has been amazing. This is brilliant. No, we could go for another few hours. Thank you so much, all 3 of you. It's been really, really insightful. Give them all a big hand.